start then.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the first Army Spotlight. My name is Apocalypse and I am part of the community department.
Ugh.
Today on this first Army Spotlight, we have a very special guest. Let me introduce the Secretary to the Realmsmarshal, Mr. dewbacktewelve.
Hey, everybody. You know who I am. You know what I do. I'm excited to be a part of the first Army Spotlight. So, when we begin?
So, what is your position?
Well, I currently serve as Secretary of the Realms Marshal. I'm the chief paper pusher of the entirety of the armed forces. I am also one of the main administrative heads and sort of the solo HR department. I manage complaints, I manage administrative duties, I uphold I uphold certain values of the Rums Marshal's office. I keep tabs on all three of the branches to ensure certain standards are met, certain requirements are met, and I always am in the know. I always gather active information on all three branches within the realm, the branch command, all the way down to the NCOs. NCOs. My main priorities is handling duties and tasks that I am given assigned by the Realms Marshal himself, or I make myself work in order to fulfill certain duties and tasks that are beneficial to the armed forces goals. I am here as a servant to all personnel of the armed forces, but I'm also here to serve of the administration of the Realms Marshal, whoever Realms Marshal that may be.
That seems like a great position for you.
Mm-hmm.
On to the next topic. What is your current and past experiences within the Army, but also with the realm itself?
I served in the previously decommissioned Franklin division when I was at the rank of Brigadier General. It was my first starter division when I was a corporal, and I eventually got to Corps Command ranks as a Chief of Staff, and it was a wonderful experience in joining the 11th Corps before it was eventually decommissioned as well. Then finally, when I was still a brigadier general as a corps chief of staff, I was offered a position to be a corps commander in Armored Greater Teutonia, which is now known as Armor Corps Fulmar. So I served as one of the lieutenant generals in charge of that corps when it was still named Greater Teutonia, and this was under the Krakenwald administration. It was an interesting time, but my interests led elsewhere to my service to the War Academy, as I'm famously known as one of the previous commandants of the War Academy. And so that's how I decided to start branching out. So War Academy for a short duration until the Finlay/Knight Donovan administration had me fired for reasons that were justified during that time. Moved over to field police, served the field police for a short duration when Tiger Crews was still the chief of the field police. Then I decided to move over to the Navy when Lithian was the Grand Admiral. Served until I got to General Admiral, then got fired from there, and continued on with my duties as Secretary of the Realms Marshal. I was hired as Secretary of the Realms Marshal during the Fulgham administration. He was Realms Marshal. Ever since, I've just been bouncing around in careers. Yes, but I've always kept my secretary position, which I believe is the most valuable position within the armed forces to serve.
Nice. So, what is your goals within Teutonia, but also the Army/Armed Forces?
Well, my current goal is to continue serving the goals of the armed forces and ensuring that we have a good rally number eventually, hopefully past what the David Mann administration achieved, but David was a very fantastic Realmsmarshal. So I don't know if I'll ever meet to what he held. And I eventually do want to serve as Realmsmarshal, but that comes with time and learning. I mean, so I am actively learning more about the armed forces every day. Each day I serve it, and each day I keep helping with whatever goals or whatever needs it needs. So achieving Realms Marshal, or at least maybe returning back to the army to achieve field marshal status. But so far I'm doing good, and I hope that the personnel of the armed forces appreciates the effort, time, and sanity it takes to do these kinds of jobs.
I understand. I can tell you from personal experience, you are doing a great job.
Yeah.
What is your current thoughts on what is going on with the army?
Well, the army is it's always like a different machine, a changing machine. There's always new cogs to be replaced, or new functions of how the machine operates. It can sometimes stay the same for a while. It will need to have a swap. Currently, we've had to swap out an entire chain of command, well, a chunk of the chain of command. And I believe with the current chain of command, we can definitely achieve stability in ensuring that personnel of the army are enjoying their experience. Because if we don't have the enlisted and the NCOs enjoying their experiences within the army, then how are we going to have an even stronger backbone to continue growing? That's typically a key point to ensure. So that's why sometimes we have to replace commands, have to go in and evaluate what's going on, understand the situation before decisions are made, if they're either drastic or minor kinds of decisions. Some people look at armed forces branches just for the numbers. I look at the armed forces branches as a picture of what's going on internally, what personnel are enjoying themselves or not enjoying themselves. Is there something to be approved upon? Is there an issue with the chain of command? And is there something internal? Those kinds of aspects. Some care just about the number that we rally. I care about everything else internally and externally.
What changes are you planning on making within the army?
Well, currently, I'm not really in charge of the oversight of the army. I more or less keep tabs on what's going on within the army, and I keep checks. But my checks keep going in go for the entire armed forces. I keep tabs on Navy, Army, Air Force. Air Force check on all three of them. If nothing is to be done, then I'm on to a different project that still impacts the greater armed forces. So far, I don't have any direct plans. But if the Realms Marshal or the Chief of the Armed Forces has plans, then I would definitely be in the loop for it. But they make a decision. They always make their choices on if they wish to utilize me or don't wish to utilize me. And if they don't utilize me, then pretty much I make sure my purpose and utilization is done, and I work because idle hands can just make the thing boring.
What changes are you going to be making within the armed forces? And what is
There's
your opinion on it? And what do you want to see changed?
Currently I'm spearheading a project in the background that will be soon to be known to the public, and it's going to impact one of the major systems within the armed forces. Stay tuned to see that. The current state of the armed forces, it seems we're almost at just normal stability, but hopefully soon we'll get above normal stability and start and growing again. But that takes time, and it takes effort to know when we're at the area of growth. There's been speaks the talking of the past about how certain months are like the months of the most activity, or certain seasons, but it's all dependent. It's dependent on all personnel in the armed forces if we can continue to grow or if we continue to be stagnant. But no matter what, we'll always have pressure from Realm's leadership to improve. So it's a necessary pressure that's good. It can be beneficial to continue testing all personnel from the Realmsmarshal himself to even me or the chief of operations. We always keep ourselves on a swivel.
Yes. What are your greatest challenges slash accomplishments within the armed forces, and how did you do it?
My greatest accomplishment was achieving War Academy Commandant, along with achieving General Admiral, and then Lieutenant General. I liked those three accomplishments because War Academy was one of my best solo projects as I was in charge of the educational system that helped create certain officers that we see today, or filtered out the bad apples. And then being a lieutenant general for a short duration was good because I gathered more experience of certain aspects within the army. And then being general admiral was another nice one because I was able to see how the admiralty and certain people function and what the Navy should be looking like. But so far, the Navy runs however the current Grand Admiral chooses it to run, and along with his staff. Greatest challenges was just keeping up with changes within like War Academy and keeping up with the complaints and trying to understand what else the armed forces needed. I thought for sure I did well for my time, but there was always some form of doubt in the back of my head. And when I got removed from Commandant, and I still have a little bit of that doubt out today, but not as much as I used to, because I know my skills, I know what I'm capable of, and people appreciate the stuff I do. Also, having to learn and adjust. You always have to adjust with the current times, no matter what you're encountering. With like the Fulgrim administration, I had more duties to do assigned by him. But I had less during the David Mann administration, and that was dependent on Herman. Each Realmsmarshal brings a new challenge or brings the same challenges. So I always have to be prepared for either less work, more work, or I get to do something new.
Who introduced you to Teutonia?
Murdered music. He served as Sergeant Major of the Army during the time I joined. I found Teutonia via him when he was in a different community. I was an administrator slash moderator of Liberty County. I was just getting tired of being an administrator and moderator. And when I met him and he showed me Teutonia. After that, when I got a little bit of understanding about what the group was about, and what kind of aesthetics and overall themes that we were going for, I just decided to stay and just be here. It's a good community. It's better than any other Roblox military or a community I've been a part of. It's a nice community.
I agree, it is. The next question we have for you: what tips would you give a new member of the Army that wants to rise up in the ranks?
I would advise that be prepared for either a bunch of work or not a lot of work within the Army. It is dependent on the position you take, but also ensure that you're treating people with respect, because giving people respect and giving them fair treatment is common sense, but it's also appreciated. You don't want to be the bad apple that gets filtered out within like the NCOA or the OA or the person that everyone hates. You don't want that. You want to be a person that is kind and respectful towards others. You might have some bad leadership that you don't appreciate, but you always have a decision. You have a choice. If you don't like the armed forces, you can go serve any of the branches, or you can stay along, see the person that you don't appreciate or that you hate, and you'll eventually see them filter out, because bad leaders don't last that long. battle leaders can typically be filtered out by current people in the chain of command, or they'll burn themselves out. Burnout is common. A lot of people burn themselves out within Teutonia because it can be like a 9 to 5. Always enjoy the experience and enjoy the learning that you gather, because you never know what will change.
So, what tips would you give to avoid the burnout?
To avoid burnout, take some breaks. Definitely taking a break for a while is good. Decrease your workload and just go have some fun. If you don't want to be serving in command position, then you can demote yourself to some other position. You don't have to be command. Taking command, being a person that is in charge of a unit, is your choice. It is not something you have to do. The rank is nice. The perks you get are pretty nice, but you always need to remember, if you're gonna do that kind of stuff, the cost of it could either be some form of your sanity or the responsibility and duties you're taking. So consider those.
I agree with you on that. That is a great tip. I know personal experience, the burnout is real, but
Indeed.
however, I've managed to make it through in many of the positions that I've served in myself. But the next question is, what decommissioned division would you like to see back and why?
Well, it's already coming back. It's Franklin. Franklin's returning. I'm happy about that. Yeah, because the regiment I served under Burgundy, it's going to get some new equipment, some new stuff. I'm excited to see that return. And otherwise than that, I mean, the 11th Corps was pretty sweet. It went with 3rd Cav. I can't remember the armored division, but there was one. Let's see what happens.
So this next question is going to be the audience Q&A.
I mean, does the audience have any questions? Someone should be able to raise their hand or at least ping one of the people. When someone's typing. Oh yeah. I'll just say this in general. If anyone's wondering about how many Realmsmarshal administrations I've served under, Witterhelm is the 3rd, or I've served 2 as Secretary of Realmsmarshal.
So, what I would like to ask is, if you were to be offered any position in the realm, which would it be?
Well, if I was offered Realmsmarshal, I would take it. Because the reason why I would take Realmsmarshal is because it's enough a learning experience and opportunity to continue helping the armed forces in its goals. It doesn't mean that my position doesn't help the armed forces. It just means that I would be able to help make major decisions and choices for what the armed forces future looks like, along with being in the know and involved with Rum's leadership, because the Supreme Command can sometimes change and stuff can happen. Sometimes I'm not in the know of what Supreme Command wants to see, but the Realmsmarshal typically is, and it would be interesting to be in that knowledge sphere. And also, I want to make my mark. David made his mark when he served as Realmsmarshal. Fulgrim made his mark as well. Well, I want to make mine, and then eventually, when I believe my time has come, I will retire peacefully. Peacefully. I serve the realm. I serve its purposes and goals. I serve the armed forces and its purpose and goals. I'm not. I'm here to be a servant, but I'm also here to learn and enjoy the community.
Yeah.
However, that community changes. It's pretty common for people not to ask any further more questions. Since I've experienced this at least 3-4 times now.
Thank you for coming, Dubek. Thank you
Yeah.
for doing this.
Oh yeah. One thing I am going to say to the audience: I'm going to be the first Realmsmarshal to wear army uniforms for just in general in game. I'm going to break tradition. I'm not going to be wearing Air Force. I'm going to wear army. I'm going to make it decked out.
So yeah, thank you for attending. Thank you for attending the first Ice Spotlight. Thank you to Apocalypse for doing this, and to Dominic. So yeah.
Adios.
Adios.